And we're back on the Money Business and Economy Show right here on 99.3 Nigeria Info, City of Lagos. I still have Aaron Masala with us in the studio, AfriInvest. I should have bills and pageantry for that. We're going straight into the budget issues, and I have also with me Dr. Vincent Waiwu. One. Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, my eyes. Director of Research and Advocacy at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So we're talking about the budget. First of all, let me quickly state that yesterday we passed, the president signed into law a 9.12 trillion naira budget, with a deficit of 1.95 trillion naira, a recurrent expenditure of 3.5 trillion naira, recurrent expenditure of 2.8 trillion naira, and we're looking to have a revenue of 7.1, which of course that 7.1 is a bit contestable because that 7.1 we know that I think just about 2 is sure. Then the rest we're hoping to get it from non-oil revenue, and then some collections that we get back from outside the country. But that wasn't what we sent to the National Assembly. What the president sent to the National Assembly was a budget size of 8.61 trillion naira. It was 16% higher than the 2017 budget, with a benchmark crude oil price of $45 per barrel. Oil production was estimated at 2.3 million barrels per day at an exchange rate of 305 naira per dollar. And they were expecting an inflation rate of about 12.4%. The National Assembly seen a few things. The crude oil price going up. They thought to adjust things around. Before we go into whether this budget is going to be useful or not, Doctor, did you see the president's speech yesterday?
Yes, I heard him making the signing speech yesterday afternoon/evening.
Yeah.
Some of those comments he made were somewhat worrisome.
Disturbing, actually.
Very disturbing, and I think the major statement there is that he is compelled or forced to sign the 2018 budget.
I think one of the things, the earmarks of a democracy should be you should not be forced to do anything. Why is he being forced? Or because he does say things. He gives indications that I don't want to hinder the recovery of our economy anymore, so we're doing this. Does that give any confidence? You represent the business community. Did you guys feel a pump in your chest when you heard that?
No. And even the other comments that followed this start statement saying that it is difficult, almost impossible. That's coming from the president himself. Almost impossible to implement this budget. And he said about a lot of new projects were infused into the budget. A lot of projects also in the original budget were removed, and the new projects are poorly designed and maybe doesn't even make economic sense. Unfortunately, at this time, we are yet to see the breakdown of the budget, ministry by ministry, MDA by MDA. But this very big statement coming from the commander-in-chief, the president of Nigeria, is worrisome. This is a budget that should be out and running 1st of January. Finally, we are getting it almost towards the end of June. We're losing the first 2 critical quarters in the year, and finally we are getting something that somebody is forced to sign, and also making a disclaimer that is almost impossible.
Real disclaimer, by the way, because that is a major disclaimer. This is park your car at owner's risk. That is what it sounded like. Aromosele. By the way, okay, let's try to go into the meat of the substance. We know that as analysts, we do talk about election season and how a lot of things tend to grind to a halt, and everybody focuses on elections towards the next 3 months before the elections. Do you think, with any seriousness, that this budget is going to have any serious impact? We're in June. Elections, some conventions are happening this weekend. Before, in the next 2 months or so, the proper candidates will come out. We will start electioneering. Everybody will start going on road tours everywhere. Will we have anything from this budget?
Well, I mean, if you're even looking at historical performance, the actual performance of budgets historically has never necessarily been in line with what the budget was. We've usually had about maybe between 60 to 70% actual implementation. But the thing is, with an election year coming up, we might see the government try to woo the people by actually implementing some of these projects that have been put in the budget. So we definitely will see increased spending, especially as we get closer to the election period. But in terms of proper implementation of the budget anyways, the jury is still out on that, and we aren't too optimistic on how well the budget will be able to do.
So, Dr. Vincent, we don't have the new breakdown, but the old breakdown we have, we see that Power Works and Housing was supposed to get 555.8 billion naira, transportation 263 billion naira, special intervention programs 150 billion naira, defense 145 billion naira, agriculture and rural development 118 billion, water resources 95 billion. Industry, trade and investment, because I was going to ask what water resources exactly, but yeah, moving on. Industry, trade and investment 82 billion, interior 63 billion, education 61 billion. I repeat again, education 61 billion. Then we go to health 71 billion, federal capital territory 40 billion, zonal intervention projects 100 billion, Northeast Intervention Fund 45 billion, Niger Delta Ministry 53 billion, and Niger Delta Development Corporation 71 billion. Does this point at any significant hope for change or improvement in these sectors? Because some of them are actually lower than previous budgets.
Yeah, it doesn't. And if you look at even the budget breakdown, these are, what are the components or quality of capital expenditure in these provisions? In these
provisions,
you see a lot of them on fluid heads, software, IT, nothing really concrete that will likely impact on the furniture, cars, and those are the components that you see in the draft budget as far as these provisions are concerned. Over the years we've been talking about the different budgetary provision, sector MDA by MDA, amount, budgetary the provision, the amount released and the amount utilized.
Yeah.
And so you may even have 1 trillion for a sector, but how much is released and how much finally utilized?
That's another thing. That's another thing.
So we will begin to, I think, ask questions and raise this national consciousness and on how our budget transmits from approval to implementation.
But doesn't that all come to the point where we already have a disclaimer now?
Yeah.
I mean, historically, as you said, the budgets approved and then budget released are two different figures. Then this one now comes with a caveat emptor, say
it might be unattainable.
You get? Doesn't it scare any? And then we're in June. We know that by September, election period will start. Should we just scrap 2018 from our national history? Because I'm not sure it exists anymore. Because I don't think there's any much we can do.
I actually heard something on the news today that in the next 20 to 30 days, they'll actually start working on bringing out the 2019 budget. I mean, we're just passing 2018 and we're already talking about working on 2019 and presenting. We've not even started implementing 2018. So just seems like there are things that just seem very topsy-turvy at the moment. And I mean, we can only be hopeful, to be honest, because really, like you said, as elections come closer, that's where all the focus is going to be.
Okay, looking at capital expenditure, we can clearly see that capital expenditure is going to be 2.8 trillion naira, and we do know that inside the component of that capital expenditure, there's still some recurrent expenditure inside it, which of course irks me out because I don't understand how you call it capital expenditure and then still have things like buying cars, computer inside the middle. But yes, moving on. Maybe it's capital enabling expenditure. But our needs are still a lot more than this 2.8 trillion. Why are we then carrying a 9.12 trillion naira budget, and we're carrying an 2.8 capital expenditure? That's the question I'm asking Dr. Vincent. Why do we have this lopsidedness in recurrent expenditure? It's year on year. We've said this thing over and over and over again. Why should we continue to expand? Because it feels like that is money you point to a basket, while the need for the country, things that will unlock economy, things that will unlock jobs, things that will unlock SME activity across the nation, are still being tied down. And we just give it a 2.8 trillion, just like Baje and Simi, don't disturb me, don't cry.
Unfortunately, having our capital expenditure serving as a variable head in our budget is really, really unfortunate. Over the years, it's been ranging between 20% to 30% of the budget. That's the capital expenditure as provided. But even that capital expenditure provided, we've done maximum of about 64-70% implementation, including the capital enabling expenditure. Just trying to borrow from you. So it's a challenge because the revenue side is high. Even debt servicing component
is high,
competing with our capital.
And that scares me.
So it is time. I think it is time we begin to have a campaign the way you are campaigning about different things. We've been driving SARS now. Now we need to reform the budgetary process.
Yeah.
From preparation to approval to implementation, and that is when we begin to see how we can balance between the capital provision and what is in the capital provision. Because if you look at the draft budget, I think there's an agency, an NGO, I don't know whether it's Sarah for our budget, that worked on frivolous items in the capital
budget.
70% of the items head by head in the capital provision, they term it as frivolous, inconsistent, and what we shouldn't be calling capital expenditure.
At all.
The quality of our budget is still very, very low.
And
the situation where the budget have now become a battleground for executive and the legislature is an issue. It is, we're two elephant fights.
The grass gets
because all of this is not affecting their own allowances, their foreign trip, their whatever, including the severance that will come for those, some of them that will be leaving by May next year. It is we that, especially the business community, is suffering
from all of this.
So I think the major conversation now will be to clean up the budgetary process. The executive and legislatures keep on every year leveraging on the lacuna or the gap, the legislative gap, the constitutional gap in our budget that makes it. Right now, we don't even know the role of a legislature in the budget. Are they budget making National Assembly or budget influencing National Assembly? Because the president said that 70% of the project he inserted in the draft were thrown away and something replaced.
Well, to that, I think, and I was trying to get the president's senior special advisor on Senate matter, National Assembly issues, former Senator Itai Nang, into the studio to speak with us about this, because he made some explanations around this budgeting process, which kind of made it very clear. And even though I was a bit upset that, it is this clear, why have you not let Nigerians know how the budgeting process works? And but from the indications he gave was that every senator in the House or every House of Representative member is trying to take projects back to his constituency. So it's a fight between you against everybody else. There's a pool of money available. I want to get this, you want to get that for yourself. But at the end of the day, what it means is that it needs to be a constant open door negotiation between the National Assembly and the president himself. You get, so there needs to be that back and forth consistently. But what I realize and what I see from this discussion and this caveat emptor which the president has put out is that that back and forth was not there. It just seemed, I've given you, all right, then you give me back.
Sent it back and then held on to it for a bit and then eventually signed it out to us.
Revenue. We can complain about this all we like. Where are we going to get the money to fund this budget from?
I mean, from the oil benchmark, with oil remaining the major source of revenue, essentially. The oil benchmark was increased from about $45 per barrel to 51 to about 51 or 54 dollars thereabouts, whilst the projected production volume was left at about 2.3 million barrels per day.
Have we ever done 2.3 million barrels?
Well, we've done as high as I think 2.1 or 2.2.
We've never done 2.3. I don't know what is giving us confidence.
Thereabouts. So, I mean, with the increase in the oil benchmark that was used, it's quite in line with the reality. I mean, we've seen oil prices sort of steady above that $70 barrel. So, in terms of our oil revenue, there's a high probability that we'll be able to meet that. But now going to the non-oil revenue bit of it, and then independent revenue sources, recoveries.
Does anybody understand what that means?
Well,
independent revenue sources.
Some of it is supposed to be revenue from these MDAs that the government is expected to get. But it becomes difficult to project those, and then when you now make that the major source of revenue in your budget, that already shows a problem, because for oil it's more predictable. We know we're expecting to do this certain level of production, we're expecting prices to be here, so we can project that we're probably going to get this. But we need to know the methodology behind making those projections for the non-oil bits of the revenue, and that remains a major source of worry, especially when you look at our debt servicing cost, about 2.2 trillion. Like we mentioned earlier, this is not so far from capital expenditure.
As Dr. Vincent said, debt servicing is 2.2 trillion. Capital expenditure is 2.8 trillion.
I mean, with 2.2 trillion debt servicing, and a revenue projection of 7.1 trillion, which we probably won't be able to meet. There's a high chance we're going to be borrowing to service debt, which would further increase. If you look at our current debt service to revenue ratio, it's there between 40 to 60% thereabout, and that's quite worrying. And there's a high chance that could even expand further.
Dr. Vincent,
I think
okay.
My own bit there is that the revenue side has the wages, salaries, and everything. Yeah. It's almost having like a first line charge in our budget, because whether we make money or not,
we must pay.
It has to be the soup. You have to lick the soup, you know. So the revenue concern we're having is still putting probability on whether we can even do anything in the capital expenditure side.
So first of all, let's just even pay salaries first. We are not even sure whether we'll do anything. Let's just pay salaries first.
Because the budgeted or expected revenue from oil, plus and minus with the first major the other day, losing 150,000 barrels per day, we find out that at the end of the day we may be able to do 75-80% of revenue from oil.
From oil.
Okay, from independent sources, two major sources, FIRS, tax revenue, and customs revenue. Yeah. And we have always said, instead of all these tax increases, let's expand the tax base so that we bring in a lot of more people and more companies into the tax net. But customs revenue, we find out that the more we drive or give customs target to go and make 1 trillion, 2 trillion, the less businesses are even able to pay tax. Because the challenge is in our maritime ports, the airports, to move goods imported out and also move goods that should be exported
in
it's a big issue, and that is why the cross-border matrix or the cross-border ranking of Nigeria in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business remain at 181 out of 185 over the last few years.
So we're just
irrespective
far
of
from
the
the
progress we just made from 169 to 145. That port issue. So that pointer really shows that the independent source or the non-oil revenue will remain a question. Others are recovering from looted assets, and those things are still something we cannot really place our hands on.
Well, if you've not seen the president's speech, I'll try to just show some of his allegations to you. He said the National Assembly increased their budget, their own personal budget, by 14.5 billion. That's from 125 billion to 139.5 billion, injecting 6,403 projects of their own, totaling 578 billion naira. He said the cuts in the projects they presented were amounting to 347 billion naira in the allocations of 4,700 projects. He says projects from which the cuts were made include the Mambila Power Plant, Second Niger Bridge, the East-West Road, Boni Bodo Road, Lagos Ibadan Expressway, the Itakwe Ajaokuta Rail Project, totaling an aggregate of 11.5 billion naira. Does anyone else see what he just said here? Does anyone see the politics here? These are key projects that he knows will that obviously can be held against his government. The Itakwe Ajaokuta Road, we talked about that here, why Ajaokuta is not working yesterday. The Lagos Ibadan Expressway, we all know that's a major issue. The East-West Road, the Boni Bodo Road, the Second Niger Bridge, the Mambila yes, now. City of Lagos, you understand. You do the math for yourself. I will not be doing it for you. But fantastic discussions we've been having here. Dr. Vincent Nwani, your thoughts in one word. If you were to capture this entire 2018 budget in one sentence, what will it be? Sorry for putting you on the spot like that.
Uncertainty. Uncertainty begetting uncertainty.
Wow. Okay. You heard it. Eramasele, you.
We should pray. I know
Jesus.
that's more than one word.
We should pray. All right. Let's. I don't even know. City of Lagos, you've heard it yourself. We tried to do the breakdown of the 2018 budget. You see, I even said 2019 because we're already skipping 2018. But you want to go and look into what do you call it? Get to look. Maybe you should check a few of the headlines, the newspapers. You see the direct breakdown of what it is. The details of the 2018 budget. Okay, so right after the show, we have the show. Let me put on your microphone so that. Hi.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So nice to be here. Up next we have Disability with Dan, who is here with us in the studio. The mic isn't on, is it? Why are you laughing?
She started with a beautiful voice and she just went, oh, and nobody was listening. Anyway, so say that again.
Okay, up next is Disability with Dan Oti, who's here with me
it's
right
actually
now.
disability, not inability.
Alright, fine.
Wait, what did you say?
It's actually
Disability,
disability,
not
not inability.
Oh my God, my ears are hearing things. Oh, you heard something too. Okay. All right. So you might want to stick around for that, City of Lagos. It promises to be a great show. I already see them plan and they have guests already in the studio. So yes, do stick around for that. But I want to thank Dr. Vincent Nwani in the studio with us. He's the Director of Research and Advocacy at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, doing some justice to the 2019 budget. We've been able to do our own bit. As I always say here, we're doing God's work. You do the rest. All right. So thanks also to Eramasele from AfriVest. Thank you very much for being.
All right, guys.
All right. So City of Lagos, look at your timepiece. It is 1 minute after 10. Still a very young morning to go out and be profitable.